Good evening, Dave Schmit. I'm with the Bureau of Forestry. I'm a forest health specialist. Tonight I'm going to discuss briefly the native versus non-native issues that we deal with on the forest. The emerald ash borer is a non-native insect. We're going to talk about the emerald ash borer in particular, and then we're going to discuss some issues with native wildflowers. Again, there's the emerald ash borer, the adult. And this is right when they're ready to emerge. Notice the D-shaped exit holes. I actually cut the face, just the outer edge of the bark, and that critter was looking out at me. He was getting ready to chew his way out of the bark there. Okay, this is the norm. Okay, when we have native insects, let's say a defoliator like the forest tent caterpillar, okay? For whatever reason, the forest tent caterpillar has a very successful egg-laying year. In the spring, it has, again, weather's right, temperatures are right, it has a successful hatch year, and you have a lot of forest tent caterpillar. The numbers spike up very quickly. Okay, and very quickly you end up with a lot of defoliation and everybody gets all wound up, and rightfully so. But it's a native insect, and the native insects co-evolved with parasitoid complexes in their native land that provide the natural controls. A parasite, we all are familiar with the word parasite. A parasite is a species that requires another species for its entire sustenance. Now, that host species doesn't particularly thrive when that parasite is there, but it doesn't die from it either. With a parasitoid, the parasitoid actually kills its host. Okay, so we see the host species, it spikes up. The parasitoids now have a myriad opportunities for laying eggs on a host. So they run out there and they can lay 50 to 250 eggs on 50 to 250 different hosts of, in this particular case, it's a forest tent caterpillar. Very quickly, their population spikes up. Each one of those can kill 250 of the host species. Very quickly, its population actually exceeds that of the host. And now this native defoliator, that population crashes, and the parasitoid population, since it has nothing to lay its eggs in, it crashes too. Now they're back in a quasi-balance. It's never a steady state. It's always up and down, but they follow each other around. This is an example of a host, which is the Baltimore checkerspot. Okay, there's the larva, okay, the caterpillar. Here is the Baltimore checkerspot begetting a new generation. Here is what we see when we have, in this particular case, would have been a wasp. Wasps are very effective, and there are thousands of parasitoid wasps. They lay their eggs inside of other insects. And when they get through, they eat the caterpillar from the inside, then they emerge, they pupate, they go in a cocoon, and then they go out and they find other larvae. Okay, this is our only known human parasitoid from aliens. Everyone thinks of nature as a very gentle sort of thing. This is what the insects deal with every day. Okay, now when we have a non-native insect, it has no native parasitoids that it co-evolved with. It comes in, it becomes introduced, it establishes itself, and it begins to spread. Well, there's nothing to hold that insect back. And that's the situation we have right now with the emerald ash borer. Before the emerald ash borer is done, we are going to lose virtually all of our ash trees in all the species. Now, there are some glimmers of hope out there. Those trees that are critically important for estates, for genetic material, that we really need to keep individuals of specific trees and specific species, we can do that. But by and large, we're going to lose 99.99% of the trees. The glimmer of hope is they have found individuals in the Midwest that for some reason, we don't know what the reason is yet because they just discovered this, they completely escaped the emerald ash borer. And when they put them in trials and make it, give the emerald ash borers the opportunity to eat and attack that particular ash, the emerald ash borer won't do it. So right now they're doing a whole lot of work trying to find out what's involved here. Is it the chemistry? Is it something in the genetics? Is there some kind of association with a fungus that is creating this situation? We don't know, but they're working real hard on that, because if in fact it's genetic, we now have a native ash tree, or names, we don't know whether it's 1 in 5,000, 1 in 20,000, but they're out there, that can be cross-pollinated with existing stocks that have been protected, and see if we can't get those genes, whatever that resistant gene is, out into our trees so that we can get the trees out there and get them back in the ground. It took us 80 years to do that with the chestnut. We are finally to the point where some chestnuts are going back out in the woods. They had to start with a Chinese chestnut and an American chestnut and get 50-50 in the genetic material and keep going, so that they keep testing for that one gene that provided the resistance. Here we're starting with 2 native ash species, native ash individuals. Okay, the emerald ash borer. We've got, it's arrived from Asia, approximately 1992. They found it in Michigan in 2002. Had no clue what it was. In Pennsylvania, we found it up in Cranberry Township in 2007. In its native land, this was not a problem. The native ash trees in China were resistant to it. The trees in North America had 0 resistance, other than that infinitesimal fraction that we've discovered. Okay, now it's in 15 states, 2 Canadian provinces, and it's been in PA since about 2000. It has moved on firewood throughout the state of Pennsylvania more than anything else. Some with the ash nursery stock, but mostly it's been firewood. It kills trees in 3 to 4 years. It eats the cambium layer under the bark, between the wood and the bark, and it very effectively girdles the tree and kills it. It starts from the top of the tree. Okay, again, there's the adult. There's the same scene of a pre-emergent adult getting ready to come out. 2007, we made the first discovery in Cranberry Township. We had 4 counties were quarantined. 3 years later, we have more than half of the counties in Pennsylvania are now quarantined for the emerald ash borer. And most of this was firewood. Somebody's tree dies next door, they cut it down. We've always done this forever. We cut the tree down, cut it into firewood, throw it in the back of the truck, and then we take it up to camp in Potter County or Lycoming, take it to our grandparents' house. We have no idea what killed that tree. I'm a forest health specialist. I usually don't know what killed a tree, okay? And I guarantee you most other people aren't going to know. Whatever killed it, if it happens to be something particularly bad, we just moved it. Okay, so we've got to be real and tell people about that and explain why. People think, well, people are, the government's telling me what to do. No, we don't want, we only have so much time. We want to give every opportunity we have to save these trees, okay? This, again, 2007, you see just a couple of states. 4 years later, 3 years later actually, spread all the way down to southern Missouri, Tennessee, Maryland, all through West Virginia, two provinces, again, mostly firewood. Okay, the emerald ash borer life stages, we got the eggs. The larvae, you'll notice that the larvae have a very noted bell shape. All the Agrylus genus has that. Has these two little ergampi. That's what those little hooks are at the end there. The prepupa in the bark, and the adult stage. It's a metallic wood-boring beetle. Okay, here, this is under the bark. This is called serpentine pattern. The juveniles, they dig through the bark and they start eating the cambium layer back and forth until they finally become adults, and then, or rather, complete their life stage as a larva. We see the growth in the instars of the larvae here. And then they climb, here's the inside of the bark, outside of the bark. They'll go right through, they'll dig a tunnel and dig it big enough that they'll fold back on top of themselves. They spend the winter like this. It's called a prepupa. The head will form here, and the tail will form here. And in the spring, okay, early spring, you've got a pupa formed, and then you've got the adult in the end of May ready to come out. Okay, here's one of the first things we're going to see. It starts at the top of the tree. It's very effective biologically. It likes heat. It likes sunlight. So it starts at the top of the tree, attacks it up there, and as it works its way down the tree, it emerges, it eats a little bit for maybe a week. They breed and go back into the same tree if there is cambium layer still left in that tree. So they'll take the whole tree from the top to the bottom. When they get down to the bottom of the tree, there's virtually nothing left. Here's the emergence hole. This is the classic of what we're going to see. If we're looking for emerald ash borer, this is it. The woodpeckers in the late fall and the winter, they realize, and again, it's a non-native insect, but they figure this bugger out, and they know that in the bark layer, in these ridges, the prepupa and the pupa are residing, and they pull the ridges off the edge of the tree. They pull the ridges off the bark, and inside there, they eat they expose and eat all the larvae and the pupa. So when you're driving down a road, you're going to see these little flecks of tan on a charcoal background in the trees. When you see that on an ash tree, that's going to be the emerald ash borer. And you can see a lot of that when you start noticing it. Okay, this in the Midwest, they had the Dutch elm disease. We had situations where everybody had elms. We lost all the elms, so they decided, well, we'll plant it in ash trees. This is the middle of summer in Ohio. Those are all dead ash trees. So that tells us a lot about species diversity when we start doing this stuff. Okay, now the native wildflowers versus invasive species. The white-tailed deer, Dr. Carson talked a whole lot about how white-tailed deer affect things. They are the deciders. Okay, I'm a big wildflower guy. When I walk through the woods, I know what I don't know. If I see, and I usually, if I'm walking and a wildflower catches my eye that I don't know, I know that I don't know that flower. And when they started this whole thing, bringing the herds down to increase the health of the forest, you wouldn't believe how many wildflowers started showing up out in the woods that I just didn't see before. Okay, so the wildflowers, the deer are going to make the decision when these openings in the crown take place. Okay, light's going to come to the floor. Things are going to start growing. If the deer are there, the deer will come in and they will eat the wildflower, the natives first, because they co-evolved with the native plants. Their gut is designed to digest those plants. They're not designed to digest something that came from Europe or something that came from Asia. They're designed to digest effectively things that came from Pennsylvania. So they will go and they'll eat all the natives, and the non-natives, they're free to grow. Okay, I'm going to show you a couple of the things where we have, and think about this with your parks. If some of these parks were to be fenced, just to keep the deer out, and start introducing, bit by bit, introducing the native wildflowers that nobody in Pittsburgh has ever seen in Pittsburgh in our lifetimes. We see a lot of invasives, and a lot of which we don't even realize are invasives, but we don't see the natives. If we could reconstitute an area that looks like it used to look before the white man got here. Now there's an idea. These are natives. Okay, there's Platanthera ciliaris. It's the yellow fringed orchid. The deer love that. Okay, this one here. That's the nodding lady tresses, another one of the orchids. Native wildflowers, they grow out there, but if you've got deer, you're never going to see those. Okay, here's what you will see though. You got plenty of garlic mustard. Deer won't eat that. It grows everywhere, grows real fast, real effectively. We got mile-a-minute weed. Deer won't eat it. It grows like crazy. That's why they call it mile a minute. Those seeds can last up to 10 years in the seed bank. Okay? We get a park, you got to get things, and we've got to get them out of there. We got to effectively extirpate the native or the aliens and bring natives in. The natives can grow. They can handle it. Okay? Vines. Hey, this is trumpet honeysuckle. You never see this. Deer love it. So you just don't see this out in the wild. I've got some right now at my house that I'm going to start doing the cuttings and getting them out there, but I'm going to have to protect them till I can get them up out of the way of the deer that they can't take all the buds off them. Okay, here's the vines that we get. And this is a very effective survivor. It will grow under low light conditions like we have right now. And then as soon as there's an opening in the canopy, it explodes. It just goes to town. That is its ecological strategy. Okay, everybody recognize this? The trees are covered with these vines, ragged-looking vines. It'll grow all the way up. This is what it looks like up close when there's leaves on it. And it will completely cover these trees and choke them out. Choke them out with light. Sometimes it'll actually girdle them with the strangulation of the vine itself. And a lot of times it'll actually pull the tree down. Okay? Bushes. The native shrubs, wild pink azalea, we just don't see them. Okay, but we do see a lot of Japanese Barbary out there. Okay, what would we like to see, natives or invasives? And the deer are the things that are going to make those choices on what's going to survive. Okay, the trilliums. We've got a place in one of the parks, I was told today, that people are so excited because there's a little patch of trilliums and it happens to be in a place the deer can't reach. The deer just can't get at that little patch of trilliums. And they wonder, why is it the deer can't get it, or they would. They'd be gone. Okay? Same with the squirrel corn. These are beautiful flowers that'll grow well if they've got an opportunity to grow and they don't get eaten. Some people say, well, what's the holding capacity of the parks? Well, ask the zoo what's the holding capacity in their small mammal pen for bobcats. That's zero. How many rabbits can you raise in your vegetable garden? None. Because they'll start with one plant, what they like the best, and they'll eat them all, and then they'll go to the next one, and they'll eat all of them, and they're going to do the same thing with the wildflowers. These, again, natives. We have these in Pennsylvania. These can be in the gardens in the parks of Pittsburgh. That was kind of a cynical. Thank you.